The first time he saw her, he thought she was a ghost. Not the kind that rattled chains or whispered through the night, but the quiet kind, something that belonged to the land itself, something that moved like wind through dry grass and vanished just as easily. He had been riding back from the north pasture, the sun low and molten behind the hills, when he noticed movement near the creek that cut through his land. It was a narrow stretch of water, more stones than stream in summer, but still the only place for miles where a person could drink without digging. Folks passed through, sometimes drifters, hunters, the occasional family heading west, but they usually kept to the road. No one had reason to wander this far in unless they were lost or hiding. He slowed his horse without meaning to, squinting toward the glimmer of water. At first, all he saw was a bundle of clothes on the rocks. Then the bundle moved. He pulled the reins gently, bringing the horse to a stop behind a cluster of mesquite trees. He wasn't trying to spy, not exactly, but something about the stillness of the scene, the way it held its breath, made him hesitate. That's when he realized there was a girl in the water. She stood waist deep in the creek, her back turned, her dark hair falling loose down her shoulders. The fading light turned her skin to gold, and for a moment the whole thing looked unreal, like something painted, not lived. He shifted in the saddle, meaning to turn away. Then she moved again, not like someone bathing, like someone checking the edges of the world. Her head snapped toward the trees, eyes sharp, searching. He froze. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Then she lunged for the bank. He turned his horse immediately, cursing under his breath, giving her what little privacy he could salvage from the moment. He stared straight ahead, pretending the sky had suddenly become very interesting. Behind him, he heard scrambling, fabric, the quick panic of someone dressing too fast. "I ain't looking," he called, voice rough but steady. "Didn't mean to come up on you." Silence. Then, cautiously, "You alone?" He considered the question before answering. "Yeah." Another pause. "You armed?" He almost smiled. "Always." That didn't seem to comfort her. When he finally dared to glance back, she was no longer in the water. She stood on the bank now, half hidden behind a crooked tree, wearing a dress that hung loose and faded, like it had been worn for too many seasons. Her feet were bare, her hair still damp and tangled, but it wasn't her appearance that caught him. It was her eyes. Wide, watchful, not afraid exactly, something sharper than fear. Something learned. "You ain't from around here," he said. She shook her head once. "You lost?" "No." Her answer came too quick. He studied her a moment longer, taking in the thinness of her arms, the way her shoulders stayed tight, like she was ready to run. "You got folks nearby?" She didn't answer. He nodded slowly, as if she had. "Well," he said, turning his horse again, "this here's my land. You're welcome to the water. Just next time, maybe pick a bend further down." He clicked his tongue, ready to ride on. "Wait." The word stopped him. He turned back. She stepped out from behind the tree just a little. Enough for him to see the hesitation in her posture. The way she weighed every movement, like it might cost her something. "You said, your land." "That's right." She glanced toward the hills, then back at him. "How far does it go?" He followed her gaze. "Far enough you wouldn't cross it in a day on foot." Something shifted in her expression, then not relief, not exactly. Something quieter, like a calculation settling into place. "You gonna make me leave?" she asked. The question hit him harder than he expected. He frowned. "Ain't said that." "But you could," he admitted. "Don't mean I will." She studied him the way one might study a wild animal looking for signs of danger, of unpredictability. He didn't rush her. He'd spent most of his life learning how to wait. Finally, she said, "I won't cause trouble." He let out a small breath. "Didn't think you would." Another pause stretched between them. Then, quietly, she asked, "You got a house?" He almost laughed. "I reckon I do." Her gaze dropped to the ground. Big, big enough for one. That seemed to matter. She nodded slowly, as if confirming something to herself. "I won't come near it," she said. He tilted his head. "Didn't say you couldn't." Her eyes snapped back up to his. That was the moment he understood. She wasn't just passing through. She was hiding. And whatever she was hiding from had taught her that homes weren't places you were invited into. They were places you stayed away from. He shifted in the saddle, feeling the weight of something he hadn't expected to carry today. "Well," he said after a moment, "there's an old shed about half a mile west of here. Ain't much, but it's got a roof. If you're planning to stick around, it'll keep the wind off." She didn't move. "You serious?" she asked. "Wouldn't say it if I wasn't." "Why?" He shrugged. "Don't see a reason not to." That answer seemed to unsettle her more than anything else. People didn't do things without reason, not in her world. He could see the question turning in her mind. What does he want? He held her gaze steady. "Name's Illy." She hesitated, then said, "Mara." "Well, Mara," he said, tipping his hat slightly, "you're welcome to the shed. Water's yours, too. Just don't go wandering near the south fence. Got a bull there that don't take kindly to strangers." A flicker of something almost like a smile touched her lips. "Okay," she said. He nodded once, then turned his horse and rode off for real this time. But he didn't go far. At the top of the ridge, he stopped and looked back. She was still standing there by the creek, watching him go. Like she didn't quite believe he wouldn't come back. That night, Illy couldn't sleep. It wasn't unusual. The ranch had a way of stretching silence into something loud, something that pressed against your thoughts until you couldn't ignore them. But this was different. He kept seeing her face, not just the way she looked, but the way she watched. He'd seen fear before, seen it in men, in women, in animals cornered with nowhere left to run. But Mara's fear wasn't loud. It was quiet, careful, the kind that settled in your bones and stayed there. He rolled onto his back, staring at the ceiling. He should leave it alone. That's what a sensible man would do. She wasn't his responsibility. She hadn't asked for help, not really. And yet, you gonna make me leave? The question echoed in his mind. He exhaled sharply and swung his legs over the side of the bed. Sensible's overrated. He muttered to the empty room. By morning, he'd made up his mind. He saddled his horse just after sunrise and rode west toward the old shed. It took him longer than usual, not because the distance had changed, but because he kept second, guessing himself. What was he planning to do, exactly? Offer her breakfast? Invite her into his home like it was nothing? He could already imagine the look she'd give him, suspicious, guarded, ready to bolt. Still, he kept riding. When the shed came into view, he slowed. The door was closed. That alone told him she'd taken his offer. He dismounted quietly, not wanting to startle her, and approached on foot. "Mara," he called softly. No answer. He reached the door and knocked once. "It's Illy." There was a pause. Then, from inside, "You alone." He couldn't help it. He smiled a little. "Still am." The door opened just a crack. One eye peered out at him. He held up the small bundle he'd brought. Bread, dried meat, a tin cup. "Figured you might need this." The door opened a little wider. She looked at the bundle, then at him. "You don't have to," she said. "I know." That seemed to matter. After a moment, she opened the door fully. The inside of the shed was exactly as he remembered. Bare, dusty, barely standing. But she'd already made small changes. The corner had been cleared, a rough blanket laid out. Her clothes, what little she had, were folded neatly beside it. "You slept here?" he asked. She nodded. "Roof didn't leak." "Not much." He handed her the bundle, She took it carefully, like it might disappear if she moved too fast. "Thank you," she said, her voice quieter now. He tipped his head. "You're welcome." She hesitated, then stepped back, leaving the door open. It wasn't an invitation, but it wasn't a rejection either. He leaned against the doorframe, giving her space. "You planning to stay long?" he asked. She shrugged. "Don't know." "You got somewhere to go?" "No." He nodded slowly. That answered more than she probably intended. They stood in silence for a while, the morning light stretching across the dry ground between them. Finally, she asked, "Why are you doing this?" There it was again, the question that mattered. He considered his answer carefully. "Because I can," he said at last, "and because it looks like you could use it." She frowned slightly, like she didn't trust something so simple. But she didn't argue. Over the next few days a rhythm formed. Illy didn't push. He brought food when he could spare it, water when the creek ran low, small things that made the shed a little less like a place someone had been forgotten. Mara accepted it all with quiet caution. She never asked for more, never offered much in return, but she stayed. And little by little she changed. The sharp edge in her gaze softened. The tension in her shoulders eased, just a fraction. She started speaking more, answering his questions with more than a word or two. He learned that she'd been traveling alone for months, that she'd come from somewhere far east, that she didn't talk about what she'd left behind. He didn't press. Some stories needed time, some never wanted telling. It was nearly 2 weeks later when everything shifted. He'd gone to the shed at dusk, as he often did, bringing a small lantern and a better blanket. But when he arrived, the door was open, and Mara was gone. At first, he thought she'd gone to the creek, but something felt wrong. The air was too still, the shed too empty. Then he saw it, the footprints, not just hers, others, boots, heavy, recent. His chest tightened. He turned in a slow circle, scanning the horizon. Nothing. But that didn't mean they were gone. "Mara," he called, his voice low but urgent. No answer. He followed the tracks. They led away from the shed, toward the hills. He didn't hesitate. By the time he found her, the sun had nearly set. She was crouched behind a cluster of rocks, her body tense, her breathing shallow. When she saw him, her eyes widened. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "Who were they?" he asked. Her jaw tightened. "Doesn't matter." "It matters if they're on my land." She shook her head. "They'll leave." "Will they?" "They're not here for you." He took a step closer. "They're here for you." She didn't deny it. Silence stretched between them. Then, quietly, she said, "I didn't mean to bring trouble." He let out a slow breath. "You didn't bring it. It was already chasing you." She looked away. "I'll go," she said. "Tonight." "No." The word came out sharper than he intended. Her head snapped back toward him. "I won't have you running," he said. "Not on my account. It's not your fight." "Maybe not," he said. "But it's my land." She stared at him, something uncertain flickering in her expression. "You don't understand," she said. "Then help me." For a long moment she said nothing. Then, finally, she whispered, "They think I belong to them." His blood ran cold. "Why?" Her voice trembled just once. "Because I ran." He nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. "Then they're wrong." She shook her head. "You don't know them. Don't need to," he said. "I know this. No one gets to claim you." Her eyes searched his face, looking for doubt. She didn't find it. Something shifted then, not just in her, in him too, a line drawn, a choice made. "You got a home, Mara," he said quietly, "if you want it." She swallowed hard. "A real one." He nodded. "With walls, and a door that locks." Her breath caught. "And you won't send me away." "Not unless you want to go." For a moment she just stood there, caught between disbelief and something deeper. Then, slowly, she stepped closer. Not much, but enough. I've never had that," she said. I figured. She let out a shaky breath. "Okay," she whispered, and in that single word something settled, not just for her, for both of them. Behind them, the land stretched wide and quiet, holding its secrets like it always had. But for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel empty. It felt like the beginning of something.